Oh, if it's working. Yes, I'm having a real cigarette. I wasn't going to do that in front of you people because, you know, there's always some jackass nag. No, I'm not smoking again. I'm not smoking real cigarettes again. But anyway, goddamn nicotine Nazis. Anyway, inspired I am. Has been making videos on the Blogger Dome site and posting whatever, documentaries, maybe, I don't know what they are, I'm not watching all of them. Anyway, and she has some theories of her own. You know, her videos are almost, well, they are kind of unwatchable. You know, she just, I don't know what her game is, I don't know why she's doing this shit. You know, she basically has a breakdown on YouTube, and then just goes about business like it never happened. You know, arrogant and mouthy as ever. And what kind of response from people? I don't want to deal with it. Thank you very much. Enough crazy in my life, in my own little head. I don't need your added fun and games. But anyway, you know, and she posts these YouTube videos, embeds on my site, and yeah, that's a formidable act. But, you know, why do they got ads on them? You know, you don't have enough subscribers to justify putting ads in your videos. Why don't you wait until you have an audience and then put ads on your videos, if you have to. But at least wait. But you can't do anything about them when they're an embedded YouTube video. You can't click on them. You can't knock them down. You can't get rid of them. So, yeah, I don't like it. Yeah. The point of the website is for sort of original content, not YouTube content, moved, migrated, indexed even. Indexes can be created without a website. You don't need a website to do that. So the purpose of the site is to encourage migration off of YouTube, not to provide audience for YouTube videos. So anyway, you're really just not getting the game I'm playing here, the method to my madness. Are you going to quote that? So anyway, yeah, I'll play her other videos where she's demanding a response. You know, where she misparaphrases everything I say, strawmans me with non-quotes, you know, when she made up. Anyway, something I want to get to is democracy, but she doesn't understand this thing at all. You know, but it's this typical, oh, I did 15 minutes research on the subject, and, you know, I have a couple of quotes from some big names. There, I've done my job. I understand the system. Like, you know, you're not going to become an auto mechanic by doing, you know, an hour and a half's worth of research on the internet. You're not going to become, well, you're not going to have the nuance to conceive, to understand systems, you know, with 15 minutes labor, or a half an hour, even a few days sometimes. It's going to take a lot more than that. And it's going to take hours of research to do really thoughtful analysis. And, you know, just doing analysis of other people's analysis, you know, is really just bullshit. You know, George said this, and then Fred said that about George, and then George said back to Fred. I mean, we really don't need commentators on the event. If the commentators aren't going to be able to put any of that into a context and say, this is where George had it wrong, this is where Fred had it wrong, and this is why, because I'm going to explain how the system works. So, anyway, the argument I'm going to make to you is that, you know, if you can't say something pretty direct, explicit, and something that you can argue from a position of understanding, not from a position of I can mimic what some other people have said, I can spout some cliches, then you're really not adding to the conversation. You're just making noise. You're just dulling the voices that need to be heard, you know, so you can do what? Impress people with the fact that you know how to go to Wikipedia? Sorry, not good enough. So anyway, on the subject of democracy, republic is all these words are meaningless. You gotta just get rid of the words and understand them as concepts. A republic is merely a constitutionally mandated democracy. That's all it is. It's a constitution that explains how the democracy works. There, you have a republic. A democracy, in the fairest sense, would be a vote of the majority. But obviously our democracy decides majorities based on where you live. So you're part of a geographic node, and it's a nodocracy. Yeah. Your geography is represented, not your ideology. It's your ideology in competition in a limited fight in a majoritarian election process. So we don't have representative government. Quite obviously, if almost half of the American people lose congressional elections every season, then they're not being represented. You're not represented when the guy who wins is exactly the opposite of the guy you would vote for. If he's in fact, in your opinion, Adolf Hitler, you can't say you have a representative. If Adolf Hitler ran in my district and won, why would I consider him my representative? No, he represents this geography where the majority of people voted for Adolf Hitler. That's all he represents. His geography, he doesn't represent the 40 or 49% of the people that may have vehemently voted against him. How can he possibly be representing them? It's an idiotic notion. So I've never had a representative. I've never had a constitutional, a federal, let's call it, congressional representative. The guy I voted for has never won. And I've never had my voice reflected in that legislative body. And that's an intrinsic problem with a geographically biased democracy. You're going to end up representing where people live, and you're not going to be representing who they are. Now, in the past it worked, and I've explained this, but I want to explain it again, because there was a thing called segregation. Where people lived actually had something to do with who they were. Like Appletown was full of apple farmers, and Shitheadville was full of shitheads. That's the way it used to work. But the world has become smaller. People have migrated. Travel is not a burden anymore. And so we don't live next to mommy anymore. We don't have the same ideologies. We have very different belief systems, and we live in these communities. And so if you're going to have a legislative body, that body should attempt to reflect proportionally. It should proportionally represent the people who live there. And the majority should still have the bulk of the power. They should have the most representatives, but the minority should all have their representative. So the racist should have a representative, and the tree hugger should have a representative, and the cigarette smoker should have a representative. Everybody should be able to vote with their ideology and be guaranteed that their vote goes to somebody that they voted for. Not that they voted against, that they voted for. And that person would be called their representative, because they're going to represent their beliefs and ideology through a willful vote, not a two-party, winner-take-all, majority always wins system. So in effect, through our democracy, we have eliminated representation because we have turned the vote for the legislature into nothing more than a subset of a vote for an executive. Now, a vote for an executive, it has to be winner take all. One man gets to run the show. One man gets to be the head speaker of the United States nation. And that's the way it is. It's winner take all. But legislative bodies, it shouldn't be winner take all. It shouldn't be majority take all. It should be everybody gets their proportional voice. And that's the flaw in the system. That's where it's broken. There's no other place you need to go. There's no other conversation that needs to be had. The problem with our democracy is the people aren't represented. Okay, the majority is represented, and that's all. The common denominator, pop culture, baby-kissing asshole is represented. Everybody else is out of fucking luck. And that's, intrinsically, if your democracy isn't doing representation, then it's fail. If your democracy is just, let's vote for a dictator, then it's fail. And that's what we have. The three branches of government are really just one branch of government because they're all, in essence, voting. The same voters have all the power. And then to top off our system's brokenness, they have this thing called the Senate, where they apportion representation not even close to one man, one vote. The voters in Alaska have 30 times the real impact on policy as a voter in California. 30 times. It's 30 men who want one vote in California. So if you're a high population state, you completely lose your proportional representation. As people, you are diminished in the eyes of the federal government. You are reduced to your foot or your elbow. You're 1/30th of the person you should be in the eyes of the government. These are gigantic flaws. And the fact that they were traditional and part of the game in the beginning, and let's understand, the electoral college and the two-senator state rule, these were bribes to get new states to join the union. These weren't things developed because everybody thought it was a great idea, that they thought it was really democratic and really fair. No, these are instruments developed merely to pay off these little fucking weasel states who said, no, we won't play unless you give us all the keys. Give us real power or we won't play with you. And give us disproportional power or we won't play. And it was a bribe they shouldn't have paid. It was way too high a price to pay to give these fuckwits in Iowa disproportional representation. To give these Bible Belt retard states the power to write our laws, a disproportional influence on our laws. So, what else do I need to go? So yeah, the fix for the system is simple. Instant runoff voting eliminates the spoiler effect in executive elections, and in state-bound geographical elections, it will get rid of the spoiler effect, which keeps the two parties in power. Third-party candidates will be able to freely run. People will be able to freely vote for them without losing their vote to a not possible to win candidate. But the message will be sent. The parties will glean. We'll all know what the results were. We'll know how many first-place votes these candidates got, these third-party candidates, and they will become a real factor in elections. So the two-party hold will be destroyed. Combine that with having all elections for legislative bodies unbound by geography, and allow, if you're going to have a state legislature, it should include people from anybody in the state should be able to vote for anybody they want to, any candidate. They shouldn't be bound to two idiots running from a regional election. And everybody who serves in one of those bodies should only carry with them affirmative votes. So they should have to get, if the current standard is they need 250,000 affirmative votes, you just raise it to 400,000 and game on. So you have the same number of representatives, but they'll represent entirely different people. The 40% closed out of the system will now be invited back into the system. All the people who currently don't vote will have a huge incentive to vote because they're guaranteed that their vote will go to a person. and that person will have their name on a list of their constituents. And so if we do those two things, get rid of the state boundaries, the county boundaries, the town boundaries when it comes to legislative body elections, and instant runoff voting, and then you have a real game. You have representative democracy, and then you can sit there and try to spit at that. It's still not going to be perfect, because you're going to have some real whack jobs, real kooks in their Congress. But the truth is that you're also going to have people of humongous integrity, and those people are going to make these other clowns look like assholes. Those people are going to show them up, and they're going to make other people say, I wish I voted for a guy like that. Okay, they're going to see honesty for the first time in government, and they're going to see integrity for the first time, and they're going to like it. And they're going to want more of it. And these slick politicians are going to be out of business. And we're going to have candidates who will actually run saying, I'll take a polygraph every year. I'll swear that I haven't fucked anybody out of their constitutional rights, and I've done nothing to aggrandize my personal position through this job. Every year. They'll be willing to do it. Not that it means anything as proof, but it certainly means something as a statement. So anyway, and that's the kind of world we can live in with a few simple changes. So anyway, till next time, my grass isn't growing. Yeah, I have to do something about that. Grow! Grow! I order you. Didn't work. I'll try something else.